Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on Simply Jewel Atypical Podcast, where we talk about life struggles, encompassing health, wellness, and alternative approaches to medicine naturally. Your host is Simply Jewel. So let's get ready to heal the mind, body, and soul. She's atypical of the average. SimplyJewel.com.
I just want to introduce you. We've been talking and we both understand and agree that there is a need for awareness and education when it comes to the warming centers and health and wellness. So everybody, I want to welcome Deborah, Noel Shaw to Simply Jewel Atypical Podcast. She is totally into education, has a master's degree in education. She also has her license in the LDAC 1. So Deborah, welcome to the platform, and let's just keep talking. We've been talking a lot about the need to educate and bring awareness. So what were we saying? Let's just pick up from where we left off on the Simply Jewel Cosmetics and Health Services Facebook page. And we were talking about people coming together, churches. Let's just start there.
Absolutely. Right now we have a population of individuals in our society that are displaced due to several reasons, homeless, unemployment, COVID, and the list goes on. But the churches need to be aware that there are resources. The churches shouldn't be afraid to open their doors, I don't feel, as a warming station and letting individuals come in. One thing I had not shared with you, Jewel, years ago, I had the opportunity to go to New York City, and I had always wanted to visit Times Square Church. At that time, David Wilkerson was living. He's the author of the Cross and the Switchblade book. And I just wanted to go there. Well, I went, and it was on a Wednesday night. And the thing that I admired about that concept during the time, that church was never closed. They treated it like it was a hospital. Literally, it was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had security in it, and they allowed their homeless to stay in their church. They could make them a pallet, on the floor, and down their aisles, they had pillows and blankets available to them. But I was like, okay, sometimes they need prayer, they need counseling, and that church was staffed with that. Oh, wow. Why aren't more churches doing this? Because sometimes there are crises in the middle of the night, and sometimes people just need individuals to talk to. In the whole concept, with warming stations right now, not every community wants a homeless shelter in their community. They're worried about property taxes. Is it gonna be grant funded? How are we going to support this? However, warming stations or emergency places for the homeless to be able to go on a short-term basis, 4 to 7 days until the temperatures get above freezing, seems to be very realistic, and it worked in our community. And the community really, really rallied together during that Christmas week to make it happen. When we decided that we were going to do it, because We were open 3 of those 7 days anyway. We did not have the funding in place. We said that we were going to do it. We wanted to help, and our community rallied behind. They brought us food. Restaurants donated food. People donated pillows and blankets and sleeping bags and hand warmers and toothbrushes and toothpaste and deodorant, everything we needed to house individuals and make a tough situation for those that were in that situation a more pleasant opportunity. And they were quite thankful. Many of them had not had hot meals in weeks. And to hear someone say, "You may have saved my life, I probably would have frozen to death," was like, we take the common amenities of light and water and heat for granted sometimes.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think the problem is? Because I hear you say your community. And do you think it's the mindset of the community? How is it that certain areas really come together and certain areas don't? Are we still saying education is important, or bringing awareness? Is it because people don't have that information? I'm just trying to find out, where is the disconnect?
I think it's awareness, and people are so busy that we don't pay attention. We just see someone riding a bicycle, and we think that person riding a bicycle is just riding a bicycle, maybe because they're healthy. We don't think that person may be riding the bicycle because they don't have identification, they can't afford a car, they may be in between their blessings. We don't think that person could be living off the grid, that they truly help. And because, their clothes are a little tattered or dirty, that stigma's out there. They don't look like us, they don't act like us, they don't drive what we're driving. We don't know how to accept and look beyond that there may be a deeper need with that individual.
Wow.
And I think, Jewel, that goes on in a lot of communities. I mean, people don't pay attention, I feel. Homelessness or individuals being displaced can look different in different situations and depending on what level. Here where I am in Tennessee, I have noticed there are people that live with no water and no electricity, but they have a roof over their head. They stay in a structure, whether it's a garage, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a modular home, and they live like that.
Wow. And they get used to it.
And they're used to it. They're very comfortable living that way until it gets extremely hot or it becomes extremely cold. They learn how to survive. They don't want the stereotype and system or people criticizing them or asking them a lot of questions. They're not free to conversate many times because they don't know who to trust. Sometimes they have children and grandchildren in these situations, and they're afraid to say too much for fear they're going to be reported and their loved ones are going to be snatched from them. Or they're afraid, some of them have therapy animals. They're afraid their animal's going to be removed from them because they're not maybe able to nourish them the way we feel they should be nourished.
Yeah. That's the problem. I think that's one of the biggest problems, and we've gotten to the point where we're so far gone, I feel, that how do we even get back to that place of unifying and making people feel like they are not ostracized, that they are included, yet they may be different from what we're used to, but they're still people.
Well, I think that we have to educate. I think it's bringing awareness that this is still going on, that we there is a stigma associated with it. You know, many individuals that are in between their blessings, I call it, you know, are struggling with mental illness. Sometimes their mental illness is substance use related. And they've just gotten kind of in a rut or in a hole, and it keeps getting deeper, deeper, and deeper. And sometimes they don't even know how to communicate what they're feeling and what their needs are. And I think as a society, we have to become more educated in our communities to see what resources are available for them.
That's a good point. Because, you know, although we're not in a perfect world, okay, we're back.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just saying, you know, although we're not in a perfect world, you know, I was just thinking, what and who do we need to contact or connect with to help bring awareness? Because my issue is some of these facilities are not equipped. Basically, that they're not able to connect with the community because they don't even know what they're living. So that's one of the issues that I've come to find. And then when we try to educate and bring people to the forefront to understand what you understand, there's some sense of anxiety, there's a sense of jealousy, there's a sense of what can I say? They're not combative, but they're pretty much. I'm trying to find the right word. It's almost like they are defensive. That you have to show them something. So, what do you think about that?
Well, the people you want, I feel around the table is what we call it in our prevention world. We operate off of 12 sectors of people. That means you want to have your city government people there, your county government officials, even if it's not your city in county mayors directly. You may have a city or county manager. You want your police chief, your sheriff. You want your school system involved. You want, you know, people in the healthcare industry involved, be it your local health department. People from the recovery world are at that table. You know, your medical personnel, be it emergency room or, you know, nurse practitioners, PAs, people that are treating and seeing these things so they can educate all of those parties that are sitting around the table. You know, it's education. They have to know, law enforcement needs to have sensitivity training on how to identify and deal with a person that may be combative, or sensitivity training on how to speak to someone that may not be the same skin tone of them. They may need to learn the importance of being bilingual. They may need to learn how to deal with someone when they're in an abusive relationship and they're transitioning or leaving that. So it's all education. We have to realize that we're not all experts in everything and that we can learn from each other, but it is going to have to cross sectors in our community. Even people that work in the for-profit and nonprofit world can, from those arenas, they can bring things, experiences, and make individuals and counties aware of grants that are available in that community. Having United Way, sometimes at the table can be a benefit. If you have workers in domestic violence, can help deal with training. You have people that train in mental health, whether they're a personal therapist, to help you identify and to ask the proper questions, to be mindful of the stigmas and the bias that exist in various cultures. It's important, but it cannot just be one group of people. The church leaders need to be there because they need to be aware and to share their feeling about some of this as well, what they are seeing in their congregations. Mental illness is not just those sitting in the pew. You can see them at the grocery store. You can see it anywhere.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. Yeah, we just have to bring awareness. And I like what you said about people in the situation to deal with the training, because nobody knows it better than them. People that are living it, people that need to bring awareness are the ones that's living in the situation. And once they get through it, they're able to assist, you see.
Absolutely. We did this warming station during the Christmas week. And one of the individuals that stayed with us during that time, he came to our meeting today, and he was able to share his experience, what it was like being there and what it was like coming back. What it was like going back to the street, and how he felt during that time. And, try to bring in 12 sectors.
Yes.
Within your community. So sitting at that table, you want your school system, your law enforcement, you want healthcare professionals, you want your local health department, you are wanting maybe people that own pharmacies.
Okay.
You want your school, you may have a school resource representative. You're going to want clergy there. You're wanting people from the recovery community, to be there. You're wanting individuals from the mental health community. You're wanting to bring as many community partners to the table to talk about community needs. Domestic violence is really prominent in our society. So if you have that, if you have an agency that deals with suicide prevention, you're wanting everyone to be there so that you can learn from each other. And then during that time, say 1 month, you're going to have training about warning signs of suicide. The next time you're going to have someone talk about what are the signs of mental health. Maybe the next meeting, you're going to talk about substance abuse as it relates to opiates. Then you may the next time get on the topic of tobacco and vaping, where it relates to youth and adults, because those identifiers are going to be different. The same way for alcohol, those opportunities are going to be different. And sometimes you want to bring awareness about that. You know, prom will be coming up in April for many schools. You know, you start putting that verbiage in the community about underage alcohol sales. Are your signs displayed in your local community convenience stores about IDs for alcohol sales? Are they on the coolers? Are there signage there about selling tobacco in vape shops or vaping products to minors? Are the signs visibly displayed that people know that this isn't accepted? You know, each state has compliance requirements about that the common citizen often doesn't know. And so if you, as a prevention coalition, we help with some of the regulations and the monitoring to make sure that our vaping stores, tobacco shops, our convenience stores are displaying the correct signage for minors. And then sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, yes, that's what makes sense to me. However, what doesn't make sense is that there's so much work that needs to be done. I think that's where people, for the most part, are lost and don't know what they should be doing. And to me, these are the things that the community and all of these officers and people who regulate this stuff should be including the communities. That's where I think we've gotten lost, because nobody's including anybody. They're just operating on their own and putting it out there. It's just like the signs, you know, people are still saying wear a mask, but they're not enforcing it.
Right. Well, I think like with in prevention is the education piece. A lot of times we are the policy makers. We sometimes have to be the policy enforcers to enforce this information and say, hey, we have regulations about this. We need to evaluate the language in this. Are there gaps? Can we fine tune this? But people have to be engaged. Sometimes it takes going to the Capitol in your local state and becoming vocal about certain issues and bills that are that are on the books to become possible law. And, you know, work with those lobbyists in your communities to help lobby for some policy changes. It does take a community, and it includes the faith-based community. The faith-based community should be one of those 12 sector members sitting in that table, so they're aware, so they're able to identify. You know, you need to find therapists from different cultures, I feel, because certain cultures may not be able to relate to certain behaviors from other culture. We need to have cultural awareness. People want to talk to people that look like them,
I
that
agree.
understand their upbringing. That goes from male to female to those that are even in the other sectors. We're getting into how can I say that, other classes. Some people are identifying themselves as other. We have transgender out there. We need to have a sensitivity. It doesn't have anything to do with our personal beliefs. Sometimes we can have personal beliefs one way or another, but when you really want to bring about change, you come with an attitude of gaining knowledge.
Yes, but we also have a system of, like, the at will state. They can pick and choose who they want to pick. That's what people are saying. And that's why people are getting frustrated, because it's unfair and unjust. And that's what we have to also bring to the table, that, like you say, laws need to be changed. And if we can't change the laws collectively, then who is it really serving? So that's what people in the community are saying. That's why they're getting frustrated, and they just want to be a part of society, a part of their community. But you're so right. It makes sense. But now we have to put the elbow grease in, as my dad would say, to do the work, so that we can get people to do what we all should be doing. Not just a few people, but all people need to be involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone, I hear people often say, well, my vote doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter. It only matters if you're consistent with your message. You have to persevere. We've been a coalition for about 18 months. Okay? We're not funded.
That's amazing.
We do it with faith. No one gets a salary. No one gets a paycheck. We are 100% volunteers, but we want to see community change. We were tired of seeing people die. Okay. When in 2019 in our community, there were 82 non-fatal drug overdoses. And it was like, why are people dying? Why are we having non-fatal overdoses, which were high, when we have Narcan and naloxone available at our dispense? All we had to do through the nasal spray is train.
Right.
And did people know this? And our medical, EMS, emergency, fire, those individuals were perfectly aware of it and were using it. But the community did not realize that it was accessible.
Oh, wow.
And I contacted Emergent, who is the company that makes the Narcan in the 4 milligram, and said, how can I get this and start training people in my community? You never know if someone's going to pass out in the grocery store.
Right.
Right at Thanksgiving, we had a man at a local supermarket that died from a drug overdose. They didn't know. They weren't trained.
Oh, wow.
This was the week of the Sunday before Thanksgiving this happened. You might see someone that passes out at a gas station pump. We don't know. And these individuals, it takes a while for EMS to get there.
Right.
It could take, 5 minutes or more. And if someone is in that state, every moment counts.
Absolutely.
It's critical. And we just can't go on and ask or remain like there aren't resources. There's not education. Everyone should know in America now about Narcan. And if they're not trained, they ought to be willing to get trained. And if they don't know how to get the Narcan training, they should be willing to call their state health department, if no less, or say, hey, how can we get Narcan training here? You see commercials on television for it. It's a doable solution, but will people take the 45 minutes to do it?
Yeah. Well, you have been most informative, and that's what I think we can bring up again if everybody will tune in next Saturday on Simply Jewel Cosmetics and Health Services. We can talk about these things again, because bringing awareness is important, and we can just keep saying over and over again, like you say, repetition, and until they get used to hearing this. I think this will be a good way to bring awareness to the community. But again, Deborah, I just want to thank you for coming on, and please feel free to let me know how you want to move forward, how we can continue to have these conversations, because it's worth having. And I'm sure the listeners tonight got an earful. Please excuse our technical difficulties, but bring us on home, Deborah. In closing, what would you like to say?
Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank you for having a heart to bring about change and bring awareness to multiple needs in our communities. And I look forward to doing this again. And I want to challenge those of you who are not Narcan trained to contact your local health department or mental health person or your local pharmacy and ask them how you can obtain Narcan training and be prepared in the event of a opiate overdose.
Yes, much needed education is needed. Well, thanks a lot, Deborah. And to all the listeners, you have been listening to Simply Jewel Atypical Podcast. Peace and blessings. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.